Hi, welcome. Going to have a talk about having a decision-making model and why it's important. And there are so many examples of having a poor decision-making in business. And the example I'm going to use today is Yahoo, and just following their story in the last 17 years. So in 2002, they had the opportunity to buy Google for $5 billion, but they only wanted to pay $3 billion, and we know how that worked out. They then tried buying YouTube, but Google came through and took that from underneath them. They bought Flickr, which could have been the next Instagram. They could have sold themselves they could have sold to Microsoft in 2008 for 44 point something billion dollars, but they didn't. And then in 2016, they sold to Verizon for $4.5 billion, so 1/10, eight years later. So why do smart people make bad decisions? Paul Nutt, he did some research and he found that managers fail at half the time than when they make business decisions. And one of the reasons why is because of having poor bias. So letting our biases affect our decision making. And so it's important to have a decision-making model because it helps overcome those biases, such as anchoring. So anchoring is when, you know, if you want to go and buy something and the first piece of information is what you tie yourself to. So if you want to buy a house and they put the value at 300,000, then you sort of get anchored. You can be anchored to that 300,000 as that's what the value is. Another thing is that problem solving is the number two, from research, is the number two most important aspect of a leader. So if you've got poor problem solving skills, you're not going to be a very good leader. And then obviously if you're good at making decisions, then you're going to be a better leader and it's going to help your career. So the decision-making model that I'm going to use today is called the 4S model, and it's from a book called Cracked It. And I'd recommend you read it if you don't have a decision-making model that you have. So if someone came to you and said, please describe your decision-making model, what would you say to them? And many times, many people don't have a decision-making model. They just follow a path because it's not taught. It's not taught in schools. It's not taught in university and those sort of places. And one of the things that, you know, where people say, oh, look at these MBAs or look at these graduates, they got all this information, but they make poor decisions. And one of those reasons is because people aren't taught or they don't have a decision-making process. So in this 4S one, we're just going to come up really quickly. So the first one is to state the problem. And so stating the problem is making sure you don't jump to having a solution. So you're defining the problem that you're attempting to solve. And this is where, if you get this wrong, you're not going to get the rest right. Many times we don't know what the problem that we're actually solving. We're just jumping straight to a solution. The second one is structure the problem. And this is where you are trying to identify the causes of the problem. So what are the causes of the problem? And this is where you want to use a different range of tools to look for the different causes of the problems, because you don't want to have just your expert set of tools that you're from, because you're always going to come with the same what are the causes of the problem. The third one is you want to solve the problem. And this is where you need to identify all the assumptions. So what are all the assumptions that you're making about the problem, and how valid, and test those assumptions. And for that, you want to have a diverse framework to work from. You don't want to just, again, come back to here where you have your one set of skill, your expert, that you're an expert in. And this is where Daryl and I work well together, is because I'm coming from my financial set of expertise, and then Daryl's coming from his leadership set of expertise, and we can we test the different assumptions, and we come from different perspectives to help solve a problem. And the last one is sell the problem. And this is all about communicating the solution and telling people why the solution should be adopted. And so many times we talk about how we've come about to the solution, but that really does not resonate to people why they should adopt the solution. You need to develop a clear and compelling story and give people a reason why they should adopt the solution that you've come up with. So this is a simple decision-making model that I use, and I'd encourage you to have your own decision-making model. So when anyone asks you, how did you come up with that decision, you can lay out in a logical order how you came up with that decision. Thank you.